Okay, I'm back with another video, and this time I'm going to be talking about Winston Rein comps, the ways to play it, the A to Z, the basics, and why it works so well, given the right situation, and ways you can actually quote-unquote counter it or beat it. So, I chose Numbani because I feel like it's the map that can get the most value from this sort of composition. Um, it really depends on the understanding of the team's understanding of the composition, what it wants to do, what it doesn't want to do, and stuff like that. So let's just start off with like what I think it's good at. So what I think it's good at is obviously separating resources between the Goats comp, because the reason why Goats comp is so good at the moment is because you're giving a lot of resources to one person that's being focused to keep them alive. Because normally when Reinhardt walks up to a Reinhardt and it's Goats v Goats, it's mostly like who gets caught out of position or who wastes CDs, right? Um, so you would use Bubble on the Rein, you would use Brig Shield on the Big Heal on the Rein, you would use Brig Stun to protect the Rein, you would use Diva Matrix to protect the Rein from Den Orbs if it gets stunned, etc. You'd have Heal Orb on the Rein, etc., etc. So what the Winston Rein composition is like meant to do is to force them to split resources to not only protect the Rein but protect the Zen, because if the Zen dies and they keep the Rein alive, they lose a lot of DPS, they lose like healing, they lose discords. Um, Same thing if Lucio died, they would lose the speed boost, which enables Goat's comp, and they would also lose the aura and also the possibility of down barrier. Whereas you either protect the front line or you protect the back line. If you kind of try to do both, you'll probably lose both. So it's like a commitment when you're running the Zen. So let's just run through like a basic sorry, one sec. Let's just run through a basic play. The reason why I'm doing it only on second point is because I feel like it gives you the better understanding of how to play the composition in its best environment. Um, which what I mean by best environment is having places that he can like quote unquote hide uh, without using his CDs to engage, so that he can use his CDs to either catch up if they try to disengage, or use it to disengage himself because he's low HP and the team can't follow up. The reason why I don't think the only reason why I'm primarily focusing on the second point is again because I think it's like the best environment for this comp, and also I think the first point is about controlling the high ground specifically, and obviously point control. And I just think that Reinhardt is completely garbage for first point unless you run into a certain situation where Reinhardt would be beneficial. I.e. running into a Pharaoh when you want to run a McCree comp, you could run the Reinhardt to get out of a choke. But genuinely on defense, Reinhardt isn't a quote-unquote must-pick, and there are much more efficient things to play on defense because of those conditions of the high ground and the point control. So yeah, let's just forget first point. Let's focus on the second point, and I'm gonna go through like a basic setup right now. So let's just say blue team just wiped. Blue team just wiped. They're all in base. They're all regrouping. You know, the whole shebang. And this was Diva on defense. Let's just say this Winston was Diva. So he's just swapped because he sees, oh, they're running goats with Zen. I can use the proactive pick and pick something that can quote unquote force them to swap or make their lives harder. So what you could do is maybe you could set up your monkey above them while they're walking out of spawn. That would do one of two things. It would force Diva to use the boosters to get him off. If they don't see him up there, let's just say, for example, he doesn't see, the team doesn't see the Winston up there, which is very unlikely at the higher levels, but we'll just give them a benefit of a doubt and say that they didn't see the monkey. Now, here is the primary example of what would genuinely happen with this composition, how it's like, quote unquote, best served, is monkey would be like, okay, I can jump Zen, can you guys go in? Or I can go, can you guys go? Or Reinhardt communicating, I can go. It's kind of like, quote unquote, the chain of command, whichever one you want to pull the trigger or want to communicate that they can pull the trigger. So your monkey communicates before the fight even starts, hey, I'm set up, let me know. Reinhardt can communicate, hey, I'm ready, I'm going in. So when the Reinhardt pressures, the Winston's also simultaneously pressuring their backline. So it would be like this. Reinhardt's walking up. They're about to get ready. Right, Brig should be a bit closer. They'd be like, speeding now. As soon as that speed happens, Winston drops. These guys push in. They pressure the front line whilst Winston is pressuring that back line, right? That is like the quote-unquote way you play this comp. But let's just say you do not have the opportunity to set up. Let's just say you don't have the opportunity to set up. And you're on retake, for example. Let's just say this fight didn't go so well and red team are retaking, but they want to keep the Winston. Now, what I would do, I mean, I haven't had too much experience playing this composition myself. So I'm just going to give you what I think is the best way to play it. And obviously, in the comments, you guys could leave me your opinions on that. But genuinely, I think that the best way... Sorry, I have to keep checking this because my mic's been playing up. So let's just say they're pushing the payload. They're like here, for example. And they're just happy pushing the payload. Now, what can Winston do? I think in this situation, Winston would play like a diva up until the point where they want to engage. So let's just say the Zen's on the payload, Reinhardt's a little bit further forward. They're a bit more like kind of split, shall we say? Reinhardt should walk up. Winston should be the one that's like, okay, I can dive backline, and then you guys should be speeding in. And as soon as you again, it's kind of like the simultaneous is like a key word here because it has to be on the same timing. Otherwise, they'll do one of two things. One, they can just disengage and bait the monkey cooldowns if you go in too early. Secondly, they will just kill your monkey. Or thirdly, they will just speed boost into your team and completely ignore the monkey. Which I'll get into about how to beat it later on. But for now, I think it should be, okay, I can engage as a Reinhardt, and the Winston's like, yep, I can too. Or maybe like Reinhardt could communicate whilst walking to the fight. Hey, let me know when you're ready, Winston, and I'm gonna go. And you could say like, okay, I see Zen, I can go. And then as simultaneously you walk into each other, and as the fight is literally about to begin, Winston would then jump the back line, and these guys would then therefore start to fight. Again, it's all about minimizing the time that they have to react to that play itself. Because if they were to disengage, let's just say for an example, if you do not give them the opportunity or the window to disengage, they're going to do one of two things. They're going to waste CDs to then fall back. They're going to use speed boost, they're going to use barrier, they're going to use the defense matrix, and probably shield bash. That's not the end of the world. What do you do as this composition now? You don't continue to chase, in my opinion. Because say, for example, they're all the way back here. You've just used your gap closer to therefore get close enough for your Winston to actually engage, right? Or maybe you won't have to. It really depends on the situation of CD management that you have. But let's just say they disengage. Your Winston's jumped in and they just back off because they're like, oh, fuck this. You don't chase. See this here? This is a very important angle. Why? Because they don't see what you're doing behind this wall. And you see all of them. Because of third person peek from Reinhardt, third person peek from Brig. So they can communicate, hey, Zen's walking down main. Can we do something here? Winston can walk behind. I would say you could speed boost the monkey. But then again, you lose the speed boost. I don't think it's worth putting too many resources into the monkey itself. Because you're losing that resource from your actual team. Which, in my opinion, it's better to have all the resources here than on the monkey. That's why I don't think giving Zarya bubble to Winston for an engage is really good. Because if he gets stunned on the Winston, so what? His whole job is to bait resources. It doesn't matter if he gets stunned, if he gets killed, as long as we have a retaliation from it. Because if we, say for example, if our monkey jumps backline and we kill their Rein and our monkey dies, we still have the core fundamental parts of what make GOATs good. We still have the high DPS Reinhardt. We still have the high DPS Zarya and the parts that make Reinhardt good. The parts that can enable him. And we have Zen that can then therefore free fire. So as long as you do the trade of the Reinhardt for the Winston or the Zen for your Winston, it's worth. Because they lose a major factor in why GOATs is good. So now that I've talked about like quote unquote the basics of how to play it and how to play around CDs and how to play around like if the team disengages. Let's talk about how you would necessarily beat this comp. Now, in my opinion, if you was against this comp, I would swap the Zen. I would honestly swap the Zen and go Moira. The reason why is because it's easier for a Moira to escape from a monkey. Okay, so look at the team comp here, right? Let's just compare this with Zen. Lucio has high mobility, he can decently get away. Brig can survive by herself. Zarya will just go wherever the Lucio goes, and she has like survivability quotation marks, like her own bubble, a lot more of a HP pool, and she has like it's a mini boot with a right click, right? Sorry, I have to keep checking this. So I would say that in this comp, Zen would always die, no matter what the situation, unless you all disengage together or you all peel for that Zen. You can't like half-ass give resources to Ryan, give resources to Zen, because I don't think it'll work. Someone will die. So if you take that occasion out and you go Moira, you have more survivability and you have more proactivity and you have more tools to disengage, right? Because you wouldn't necessarily need to use the speed boost to disengage. You would probably just be like, okay, they're gonna walk close to us. As soon as their monkey jumps in, we are speed boosting forward. It's literally a This is why it's important for a Winston when they have time to set up, they do not use their jump to engage because of this situation where the enemy team can just ignore you and speed into your team, which is very important. Which is why you take the attention first as the main team, and then the Winston jumps in afterwards or jumps down without using CDs from a high ground. So ways I would think you could actually beat this is obviously you could swap the Zen, you could play more of a reactive team comp, you could kind of play more baity, like if you know that they're going to jump in, you can just be like, okay, as soon as that monkey jumps, we're going to disengage or we're going to re-engage. You could say, hey, we can maybe stun the Winston, then re-engage, or we could kite backwards because he doesn't have the bubble and doesn't have his own bubble, doesn't have Zarya bubble, and they probably use speed boost to engage, so we can like just get out, reset, and take the map control slowly, because we can then now see the Winston. It's easier to like play. So recap, you can play aggressive into them, or you can disengage, depending on the situation that you're in, and whether you have the CDs to actually pull off one of two plays. Another way, honestly, you could beat it is maybe you could go a double CC comp and play kite. So what I mean by that is you could swap the Zarya for. I mean, this is completely my opinion. I have no idea if this actually genuinely works, but this works in hindsight 2020, where you could play like pure peel. You bait the monkey engage, or you bait them to walk towards you and aggressively, and then you just kind of like jockey between your two. It's basically who makes the mistake first, who makes the engagement. Because unless they put resources into the monkey to keep him alive, he will probably die. And what I mean by that is the Zarya bubble. Because if you have two forms of CC to jump in, oh yeah, by the way, if you want to go McCree, you probably want to go Zen again, because you need the Discord to blow up the Winston. Because if the Winston jumps in, that should be a stun from Brig, or maybe if they bubble him, you can maybe just burst him down with a bubble, then the stun, followed by the Discord should already be on him as soon as the bubble gets destroyed, then flashbang, and then that Winston should be a non-factor. But the problem then that you have is if you don't bait the engage, and they're engaging simultaneously, as I said before, probably gonna lose. So again, this is like ifs and buts. This composition relies heavily around, honestly, like just general game sense and general reactions, and like cleanness is really good with this, because if you try to go too ham, I don't know what I'm talking about now. But yeah, you get the general idea. One baits the engage, one disengages, kills the resources that the monkey uses, and then takes space. That's what I tried to get across. My bad, I was just confusing myself. You could also go quad tank if you really wanted to. but then again, you lose the whole reason why goats is good, which is Brig, so it's not really goats anymore. But I'm talking about like goat-centric compositions, like this Winston Rein versus goats, why it's good and stuff like that. I think that basically covers everything. I kind of talked about what like comm structure you should have in terms of like it's basically the same as goats, except there's like a hierarchy between the Winston and Rein about like pre-planning setups, when to engage and when to disengage and stuff. Yeah, I think I covered that. So this is like a short video. I hope this helps. Um, the reason why I don't run this composition on third point, I'll just quickly go through that. The reason why I don't run it on third point is because it's a lot harder for Winston to necessarily set up, especially for the attacking team where there's like one massive choke and one high ground. Maybe he could get away with just going high ground, but most teams will have a D.Va scouting on the top. So honestly, I don't think that Winston Ryan is very good on this point here in particular. I think it could be good for maybe defense, but there's not so many corners that you could hide from. Whereas on second point, you could hide in multiple locations. You could hide here, 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 behind bus, in this room. This room is risky though, because if they find you, you have to use your jump to get out, and the ceiling is quite low for Winston, so I think it's you could get away with it. You could hide here and walk around, depending on where the payload is. Here, like basically anywhere on this map is decent as long as you can get in without engaging, without using your jump within a successful amount of time. Yeah, I think I've done most of it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If there's anything I didn't miss or you feel like you don't agree with, just leave it in the comments. We can have a discussion. I also have a Discord linked in the description if you want to come and ask any more questions. I will answer them within an hour because I'm mostly on my computer most of the time. Yeah, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.